senpai, Naomi senpai.
So Return to Silent Hill came out a few weeks ago. It sucks. Like, real bad. I mean, saying it sucks is selling it short. Why? Well, because it's not an adaptation. It may claim to be, but like, the final result is so different and so far removed from the Silent Hill people know and love that it's practically unrecognisable. Now look, I do kinda sympathise with director Christoph Gans and the rest of the cast and crew to a certain extent. Silent Hill 2 is one of those rare pieces of media that has had such a profound impact on people that the very idea of adapting, updating, or changing it in any way it's almost sacrilege. I remember when the remake was announced and everyone was collectively outraged, trashing every trailer, scrutinising every screenshot, and rightfully so given the developers. Bloober Team had a spotty reputation at best prior to the remake's release. Thankfully, it ended up being largely well received by longtime fans and newbies alike. Overwhelmingly positive reception, and that was despite the fact that it made changes from the original. The worst offence being the sheer lack of pizza.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?
So what gives? Why was the remake lauded and the film lambasted when they both differ from the original experience? Well, the remake only made small incremental changes from the PS2 version, like slightly expanded gameplay sections and cutscenes, stuff like that. It was still the Silent Hill 2 players remembered, just with a fresh coat of pretty and pristinely optimised Unreal Engine 5 graphics. On the other hand, all the changes made in the film diminished the mysterious storytelling and emotional impact that Silent Hill 2 is famous for. Heck, I'd go as far as saying that this movie is the antithesis of Silent Hill. This is Christoph Gans' second go at the franchise after his first film almost 2 decades ago. Somehow this movie is far worse, which is pretty impressive considering the 2006 film was an utter snooze fest, in my humble opinion. But I digress. In this video, I'll be covering some of the changes made in the film, why they take away from what made the original so great, and what I believe the real intention behind this movie's existence actually is. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers for both the game and the movie moving forward, so if you haven't played Silent Hill 2, do so. Okay, whether it's the remake or the OG, you can't go wrong with either. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. The movie opens on some flashy, pompous douche nozzle speeding on a highway while blasting rock music. He accidentally runs over this woman's luggage and he quickly rushes over to apologise. Okay, not sure what this has to do with Silent Hill 2. Wait. No, there's no way, surely.
I'm James, by the way.
Mary.
Excuse me? You're telling me that's James? That ain't James, bro. Okay, I'm not saying the actor has to look exactly like the character they're portraying. I actually think that's a pretty redundant way to make a casting decision. But like, come on man, there wasn't even an attempt here. Worse, his costume design is not evocative of James in the slightest. There's a really good quote by the remake's lead character artist, Pablo Poliakov, that perfectly articulates how James should look. Quote, "It would be very easy to get carried away with a very flashy design, but this would miss the point of who James is. He had to be not too cool, not too good looking. There is this aspect of James of being a bit more of a pretend hero than an actual heroic figure." Unquote. The point is, he's supposed to look non-distinct, average even. James is mild-mannered and reserved throughout the game, and his outfit reflects that, being pretty basic and not overly loud. Bloober Team understood the assignment. Christoph Gans and crew did not. Here, James has a badass leather jacket concealing what looks to be a black Hawaiian shirt underneath, with not one but 2 necklaces for good measure, all of which is way too loud and pronounced for a restrained character like our main man, Mr. Sunderland. The mischaracterization of our protagonist from the source material is realised far beyond his design. There's a reason why James went from driving this beat up piece of shit to a freaking convertible in the movie. Here, James is an artist, apparently a pretty successful one, as you see him living it up in a nice high-rise at the start of the film. Unfortunately though, after losing Mary 3 years prior, he's not doing so hot, getting drunk in bars and picking fights with the employees. Yes, James is pretty much the embodiment of the tortured artist archetype, which wouldn't be a bad thing if it were any other character. To be honest, it feels like Gans wanted to adapt Alan Wake more than Silent Hill. Picking fights with people is more up his wheelhouse than James, who in every cutscene from the game tries to de-escalate the situation he's in. I mean, how is this even the same character?
Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie.
Don't order me around.
I'm not. It's okay.
The first 10 minutes of the movie are dedicated to establishing how Mary and James met and James's sorrow after her passing. All of this is completely unnecessary. The game starts with James arriving in Silent Hill. I know there are some tertiary pieces of media that slightly expand on James's backstory, but talking explicitly about the game, the only thing we know about him is that he's looking for his dead wife. Hell, that's kind of the main hook, right? This guy's wife has been dead for years, but now he's got a letter from her? What's up with that? What the heck is going on? Man, I want to keep playing to find out more. We didn't need to see James's occupation, or how he met Mary, or how he was a blooming drunk. We didn't need to see any of that. The allure of the Silent Hill series is the mystery surrounding the story and characters, yet this movie seems dedicated to crushing that very notion. A common theme throughout, might I add. Anyway, James gets a letter seemingly written by Mary and heads for the town of Silent Hill. In what is probably the most puzzling decision of the adaptation, the letter has been completely changed from the original. Why? Okay, Gans, I get it. You're making your own version of Silent Hill 2, with the majority of the details being pulled out of your own arse, but the letter is arguably the most iconic part of the game. In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. It's like the video game equivalent of, it was a bright cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. It's a powerful quote that instantly grabs the player just by the nature of how mysterious it is. Restless dreams? Is she having trouble sleeping? If so, why? And what is so special about Silent Hill? You know what I mean? The film's letter doesn't even mention the Silent Hill, for God's sake, so their special place could be anywhere on Earth, all things considered. So James travels to Silent Hill, but not before having a chat with his therapist about what he's doing. You know, just in case you were unaware that something was wrong with James. I mean, you can't make this crap up. The therapist is practically a source of needless exposition on things that don't need to be explained. There's literally a scene towards the end of the film where she talks to another person about James's mental state after losing Mary. Gans, mate. Have you ever heard of context clues? I swear, this movie is obsessed with explaining things that were originally left open for interpretation or inference. Either that or elaborating on stuff that didn't need to be elaborated on. The therapist's very existence undermines James' character, as the audience is made overtly aware that something is wrong with him from the very beginning. In the OG game and remake, the player was none the wiser, only cluing into the fact that something might be up with him through subtle details revealed throughout the story and the way he interacts with other characters. Speaking of, let's talk about someone other than James for a change. You'll be glad to know that all the side characters from Silent Hill 2 make an appearance in the movie. Everyone is here, in what is probably the worst way possible, but we'll get to that later. Like the game, the first person we meet in Silent Hill is Angela, a timid woman who is weary of James due to her troubled past. Honestly, I think the actor for her did a semi-decent job, especially considering the god-awful script. Had they not utterly butchered her character, which again we'll touch on later, I think she would have actually been pretty decent. When James travels through the apartments, he eventually comes across Eddie and Laura. Eddie is barely even in the movie, and the same can be said for all of the characters except for James and Maria. I get that it's a film and so naturally there's going to be stuff cut from the game, but Eddie is a pretty important character in Silent Hill 2. Mary, the dead wife, is featured way more predominantly than him, for crying out loud. This is Eddie's only scene in the film, and that presents a glaring issue that also applies to the other characters. You see, the people we meet in Silent Hill 2 have these things called character arcs. When we first meet Eddie, he's shown to be nervous and panicked, puking his guts out into a toilet at the sight of a dead body, instantly pleading his case to James that he didn't do it, despite James never suggesting that he did, which is very indicative of his crimes before arriving in Silent Hill. Later on, he has fully succumbed to the insanity induced by the town, confessing to the murder of his bully's dog, as well as the fatal shooting of the bully himself, even justifying his actions by claiming that they had it coming. Because he only has one scene in the film, they have to represent his entire character growth in one brief moment. The result is extremely poor, to say the least. Here, Eddie is just a dick to James for no reason when they first meet. There's not even a corpse in the fridge like there is in the game, so Eddie is just puking into the toilet because he ate too much Ben & Jerry's or something. I don't know. None of the various side characters' backstory is intact in the movie, which is very much on purpose. Again, bear with me, we'll get to that later, okay? The worst character by far is Laura. Easily. In the game, Laura is very much a, well, child. Pulling pranks and teasing others with personal insults, but in a very naive, childish way, not fully comprehending the ramifications of her actions. Yeah, she can be a brat, but she's an 8-year-old girl at the end of the day. So how did they adapt her in the movie? Well, they completely transformed Laura into a generic, derivative, spooky ghost girl, speaking in a very slow, very creepy voice. Come play with us, James. I mean, she might as well be Alma from Fear or Evelyn from Resident Evil 7 or something like that. Hell, Evelyn was a lot closer in character to Laura. than whatever they did with her in this movie. She is Laura in name only, none of her personality from the game is demonstrated here in the slightest. What makes matters worse is that Gans already did this trope in his last Silent Hill movie with Alessa. Make no mistake, these are in practice the same fucking character. How did Laura go from calling James a fart face to whatever this is? Look, I could go on, but the main issue with these characters comes from their ending, but before I get to that, I want to talk about the horror element of Return to Silent Hill. This is an adaptation of a survival horror game after all, so how do the scares fare? Unsurprisingly, this film fails at that too. The horror in Silent Hill is defined by its subtlety, gradually showing you more and more messed up imagery alongside eerie isolating ambiance to get inside the player's head. Combine that with an emotionally charged story with heavy adult themes, and the player is in for a very melancholy experience filled with dread. A sharp contrast to Western horror, which is more recognised for its loud, in-your-face, panic-inducing nature. Both of these styles work really well, but the latter just wouldn't be fitting for Silent Hill. This is made pretty evident with this movie. Instead of the subtle horror that the series is known for, we get ooga booga dead wife jump scares and loud chase scenes with dozens of insects. Oh yeah, that's another thing both this and the 2006 movie are guilty of. In the games, you'd only encounter like 2, maybe 3 enemies in one area, but in the movie there's like a whole army. Both of Gans's films have the same scene of the protagonist running into an army of bubblehead nurses, even though in the game, just one of these guys were enough to delete your whole health bar if you weren't careful. I'm guessing this was done to ramp up the tension tenfold, but in reality it just makes what were once terrifying enemies into nothing more than a joke. Hell, it's worse in Return, because there's literally a moment where James is killing multiple nurses like it ain't no thing. I think the scene that illustrates most the contrast in horror philosophies between the game and the movie is the introduction of Pyramid Head himself. In the OG and the remake, we first see Pyramid Head just standing there, behind a barred hallway. Not doing anything, no cutscene, no interaction, just vibing. But it is an unsettling what the fuck moment that puts the player on edge. In the film though, they transform Pyramid Head from a mute force of nature into a dumb grunting beast who storms down the hallway trying to force his way through the bars as James makes a run for it. Yet another change that completely misses the point of the original. Also, what is the deal with Gans' insistence on making the protagonists of these movies almost completely defenseless? Seriously, in both films they just end up running away or refusing to fight. That goes for the bosses too. I did mention a scene earlier where James goes ham on a bunch of nurses, but that is literally the only example of any sort of self-defense. Combat is a huge part of the games, and it's also an extension of the subtle horror I discussed prior. Let me sell you on the combat in these games, okay? Imagine you're running through Silent Hill, barely seeing 10 feet in front of you, and then your radio starts blaring static. You come to a complete stop, analysing your surroundings. Eventually, the otherworldly freakish monster finally comes into view, and you manage to get a few hits in, but then they end up attacking you. You kill the enemy, but now you're on low health, and just as you think it's over, 2 more enemies come into view, and now you have to choose whether to run or fight. See what I mean? The combat may be janky, but it succeeds in making the hair on your arms stand taller than my dong after the Silent Hill 1 remake announcement.
Let them fight.
And with that, let's finally talk about the ending. Long story short, James makes his way through Silent Hill looking for Mary, along the way experiencing frequent flashbacks to their past life in the town. In the film's canon, James and Mary lived in the town together, and these flashbacks reveal that Mary was part of a strange cult. It turns out that her sickness was due to being poisoned by the cult for some weird ritual. James ends up at the Lakeview Hotel, encountering Laura, who in a comical scene asks him what Mary's full name is. It's revealed that Mary's actual name is Mary Angela Laura Crane. Damn, that's a mouthful. And both Laura and Angela are figments of James' imagination based on Mary herself. The same goes for Eddie and freaking Pyramid Head of all people. Hence why we can now see Pyramid Head's eyes, because get it guys, Pyramid Head is literally James. It's also why you can now summon him like some sort of D&D necromancer, but anyway, it's final confrontation time. James finds Mary, who appears to him in the form of Stranger Things. It's here where James is finally confronted with the truth of what happened to Mary. You see, James left Silent Hill a long time ago, but came back shortly before Mary's death, to see her one last time. In one final act of mercy, he gives her a face full of pillow. Afterwards, he snaps back to reality, finding Mary's corpse, which he then carries back to his car, driving both the body and himself into the lake, making the in-water ending canon to the movie, and man, how fitting. I mean, this climax makes me want to in-water myself, like, God, where do I even start? First of all, way to ruin James's whole character arc. In the game, he kills Mary because he's a selfish prick.
The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
Mary's illness was a random cruelty inflicted by the universe, and James got tired of her being a part of his life. In the movie, James left before she even got ill. Plus, her illness is a direct result of the cult's poisoning, thus mitigating any blame on James' part. I mean, sure, he might have been the one to do her in, at her behest by the way, but it's the cult's fault that she got like that in the first place. Gans saw that people interpreted Maria and Pyramid Head to be reflections of Mary and James, and just applied that to every character for some reason, removing each of their backstories in the process. The whole point of these characters was to show different paths that James could have gone down. They also demonstrated the effects of Silent Hill and how it messes with people's minds and appears differently to each person, hence why Angela's is covered in flames and Eddie's is cold and full of meat. It also shows why a young 9-year-old girl like Laura can casually stroll through town without any issue. Because of her childish innocence, she isn't witness to any of the monsters like James, Eddie and Angela are, which makes it more understandable why she would shut James in the hospital section. She wasn't witness to that giant scary monster trying to attack him. Finally, it just gave the writers an avenue to touch on other serious themes. Learning about Angela's abuse is one of the most heart-wrenching and emotionally devastating parts of Silent Hill 2, and it's just omitted here. This ending? No. This whole movie does not resemble the game one bit, and that's by design. You wanna know the reason this film is called Return to Silent Hill? It's a soft sequel slash reboot of Gans' first Silent Hill movie. Fog caused by ash from a devastating fire, sirens signaling the town to change into the other world, a creepy ghost girl, a cult being responsible for everything going wrong. I mean, this is just the first film again, and like I said at the beginning, somehow far worse. Christoph Gans has stated that Konami forced him to keep the runtime under 2 hours, claiming that his own director's cut would make the film a lot better. Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree. No amount of extended scenes are gonna save a film with this bad of a script. Every change made in Return to Silent Hill completely takes away from what made the Silent Hill series, especially Silent Hill 2, so special to so many people. I'm surprised they chose the in-water ending and not the dog ending, because this movie is a joke. But anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. Like if you liked, dislike if you disliked, subscribe for more quality content, and I'll see you guys next time.